Cool. Okay, so on today's video testimonial, I have Alistair Wood, who has just finished his first 16 weeks working with me as part of the Executive Evolution Framework Program, which is a 16-week one-to-one coaching plan. And he's agreed to jump on the call for us to have a bit of a chat as to where he was when we first met, what he was struggling with his health, what we did to improve that situation, what his now amazing results have gotten to, and any other thoughts you might have. So, hi Alistair, thanks for joining me today.
Hi Daniel.
Do you mind just giving anyone listening to this a bit of an idea of where you were when you first reached out to me, what you were struggling with?
Yeah, so I mean, I think if I take it back quite a few years to start with, so I was kind of thinking in the context of how I got to where I was. So
yep.
I first moved to London for work in September 2011. I was about 100 kilos then. I moved back to Scotland because of COVID, etc. in May last year, and at that stage I was just over 140 kilos. So that's kind of over a kind of 9-10 year period. You know, there's been periods of going up and down, but the kind of curve in between that was all up. I kind of arrived back in Scotland. I did lose a bit of that weight, but I mean, if I'm honest, that was predominantly through where I was living in Scotland at the time, didn't have Deliveroo or Uber Eats. So it was just genuinely, I think that was it. There was no structure around it. I wasn't really doing anything different. You'd added me on LinkedIn maybe a couple of months before. We hadn't really spoken, but I kept seeing the posts about the results you were getting, and I was sitting at about 133 kgs. I am like 6'4", so maybe it's still way too much weight to be carrying. I kind of tried stuff in the past, but it had always kind of bit had come off, gone back on. I put on about 25 kilos in a 6-month period, and I just kind of needed to try something different that was going to kind of put some structures in place and, you know, try and address that and somehow kind of get something that is going to be sustainable going forward. And the posts said that's what it was, so it kind of seemed I had to try something. I was at that stage, and here we are.
So 40 kg increase over a decade, which I think for anyone who's listening to this who's an exec or a business owner or just a busy professional, because you worked in consultancy for that decade. You know,
yeah, I'm definitely not an exec or a business owner, but it's there's the
similar stresses, similar pressures, being in management. And I think anyone who listens and they're like, that sounds awfully familiar. You know, I started in the industry I'm in 10, 20, 30 years later, and the weight has just gradually crept up over that time. I mean, you mentioned that there was periods where it would go down and go up. What have you tried before we worked together? What had you tried that maybe had worked and you'd lost some timber, but it had come back on? Was there anything that sticks out that you tried in the past, had luck or not had any luck with?
I mean, just not eating carbs, doing loads of exercise. I had tried, so I mean, as part of the program, you know, intermittent fasting is a big part of it. I had tried that before and it kind of worked, but I didn't really know the science behind it or why I was doing it. And I went through a period where I was pretty strict on my diet, exercising all the time, gave up smoking, and I gave up drinking for nearly a year. But I found that like quite stressful in itself, partly especially not drinking because, you know, it's a big social part of work and you know, your personal life. And then it basically kind of got to the stage that I kind of started smoking again and then started drinking again. And then it was kind of like everything, all bets were off and you were just kind of back where you started. And I think talking about other, you know, you said, you know, other people in the video that might have similar experiences. You know, I was a bit reluctant about the video and putting this out there, but I watched some of your other clients that had done their video testimonials, and you do think you're kind of in a unique position, and you think, oh, nobody else is struggling with the same stuff. But a lot of what they were saying was like, well, this is exactly what I'm like as well. So it made me more keen to do it because I think a lot of people struggle with this stuff and need to just want to do something differently.
100%. I think everyone I speak to feels like they are somehow the only person that's going through the struggles. Now, the reasons for their struggles are their own, and I definitely wouldn't decry that, but there's actually a quite a common thread for most busy professionals, male busy professionals, is we don't prioritize ourselves and our health falls by the wayside. And it takes something, either a health scare, it takes a comment being made, it takes like an inciting incident. It could be that you see a post, like my post on LinkedIn, talking about other people's progression and ability to change where they were. And that resonates enough for you to think, oh, actually, I need to give this another go. So definitely, a lot more people than you think are struggling in the same way. So there's definitely a common thread there. And it's interesting you mentioned when you've tried stuff in the past, it's been restrictive diets, increasing exercise, but that's been the only two things. You've focused on nutrition and you focused on movement. For anyone, again, who doesn't know how I work, how does that differ from what we've done in the past 16 weeks together?
Yes, I mean, that's still a big part of it, and I think any kind of diet plan is, but I think that's kind of, everybody really knows that, and if it was that simple to kind of sort it out, then you wouldn't be in a job. So
it wouldn't be a career for me. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot more around mindset, dealing with stress. I think there's a lot of things that I've kind of realised now that did stress me out, that I didn't even think it was stress. I just thought it was kind of, that is just how the mind works, and this is like part of your day-to-day job. It's just a stressful situation. But I guess when I got stressed, I would smoke a lot. I would, I drink tons of Diet Coke to try and perk me up. You work in London, there's always an opportunity to go out for beers after work. So that's kind of how you shut down after the night, and it becomes kind of just normal, and it's just how you do it. So I think it's just breaking it down. You do it on it's not a kind of day one, here's everything we're going to do for 16 weeks. It is quite baby steps, I would say. So it's gradual, and there's times you're not going to manage to do certain goals, so you've got to go back and do them again. But I think it builds it up quite well in terms it's not overwhelming. And then it's just, I think a lot of it's just awareness and just starting to think about, when you come for the coaching call or speak to you independently of them, just think of it right, why have we been stressed out? Why do I want to have a beer? Why do I want to smoke? Why do I want to do this? And so I'm probably at a stage now where I'm a lot more aware of it. But we've also done 16 weeks, and I've signed up for some more, because I think there's more work to do on, being aware and then kind of addressing it before you go a bit off script and do something that's going to negatively impact on your weight and the health.
It's really, you just brought up one of the biggest points of the coaching is, the exercise and the nutrition. We focus on that. That's the physical body aspect, physical health. But there's a lot of focus on stress, on getting your sleep optimal, and making sure that our outlook on life, our mindset, our mental health is also strong. And then you talked about self-awareness, which obviously taps into the stress and the mindset. How important do you think focusing on improving and increasing your self-awareness has been to the progress you've been able to make?
Yeah, it's absolutely key, but it's something I kind of knew, but just didn't know how to do it. So there's a lot of stuff if you told me 5 years ago I'd be meditating once a day, I would have told you you're crazy, and that kind of stuff can't work. But I think stuff like that, meditation, the kind of connotation is it's some, kind of sitting, kind of humming, like that, which it isn't really. It's just kind of focusing your mind. So and as you do it more, I noticed the difference after a couple of months where it was just being able to kind of focus your mind on something else of whatever you were thinking about. And I did find I find now that you kind of catch yourself and you can just refocus. And that's the main thing. It's 10 minutes a day, just kind of breathing and just focusing. So I think, again, meditation's just got all these kind of, like you said, that kind of connotation. It isn't about that. And I think you just need to come into, if anyone did sign up, just come into it with an open mind and just think 100%. There's going to be some stuff you hear what you got to do, and you're just I really don't want to do this, but it's just, you've kind of signed up for it, you're paying for it, just buy in. Well, you know what I mean? But buy into it and just think, I'll try it, and if it doesn't work, then I won't do it again. But there's no point saying, nah, I'm not doing that, because then you're just why are you doing it, really?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's easier said than done, but like, you just have to be open-minded, I think.
I love that. Yeah, I love that you mentioned the open-minded thing. You know, it's so important. I only work with men. I work with serious professionals, people who are very business. And so when I bring up the topic of meditation, I bring up the topic of gratitude practice, I bring up the topic of positive affirmations, and we talk about mantras, and we talk about all these things that are totally coming from left field. And most blokes I talk to, just they may have heard of the terms, but they have no idea what it means, and it's very woo-woo. And I know you were hesitant when we first started. You were like, I'm open to try stuff, but I am a bit like, I remember your face when I mentioned a couple of things. You were like, okay. But then 4 months later, it's now an integral part of what you do. And when you don't do it, like the previous weekend when you had a bit of a blowout weekend, you really notice the difference when you drop the morning routines, you drop those things that we put in place to kickstart your day in the right way. I mean, to give people an idea, we've talked about how much weight you gained over a 10-year period in consultancy. You've lost 16 kilograms, which is 35 pounds, in 16 weeks. You've lost 6 inches in total from the circumference of your chest and back, and you've lost 4 inches off the waist and the hip. So not only have you lost a lot of weight, but you've also lost a lot of size. On top of that, you've had increased energy, improved mood, increased sleep. How do you feel, which is a hard thing to quantify, but how do you feel now in comparison to where you were when we first met or just before we first met?
Yeah, I feel a lot better. I mean, when we first met, there was only like about 2 or 3 different like outfits I would wear, just because like I put on so much size and didn't want to accept it. So like I just didn't buy new clothes. I didn't want to have to go like spend $2,000 on Jacamo. So I was just like, struggling away. And now I can just like wear like, there's still like a way to go. I'm not going to be going to kind of tops off in Ibiza anytime soon, but like I'm kind of back to like wearing my old clothes. I feel a lot more comfortable in them, and even little stuff like, I wasn't struggling to walk upstairs, but I mean, that's maybe not true. I kind of was. I was struggling more than I am now, which is like ridiculous for a kind of 36, 37-year-old man. Like, and I was kind of like playing with my nieces, running around the garden. I was like, this is pretty tiring.
I need a nap now.
Which is like not the kind of, that's what you kind of associate with like 40 years on, not like what I am now. So it was pretty tough. So I feel a lot better there, a lot fitter, and then I guess I kind of lost all the weight, and it's not like massive pressure to lose more, but I'm pretty confident that there's a lot more structure in place, and there's still like a lot to go, and like I'm not worried about it. But again, I'm not saying I need to be this weight. And I was actually thinking about that earlier. It's kind of like a cricket analogy, when you get like someone gets 99 and gets out, and everyone's like gutted, and it's like a failure because you didn't get 100. So I don't want to get in that. Yeah, still 99, but like if I could, if I lost another 10 and I made a target of losing 13, there's no point beating yourself up about that. I think you need to think about it more in terms of how you look and how you feel, rather than kind of numbers. But I mean, numbers are so good when you stand on the scales every week and you're kind of going down.
I think the importance of the numbers and the tracking, because obviously 2 phrases I've said probably enough to drive you absolutely mad over the last 4 months is progress, not perfection, and what gets measured gets managed. So it isn't about the weight on the scales ultimately, because no one knows that but you. It's about how you feel in your own skin. It's about how you feel when, I know we're all in lockdown at the moment in the UK. This is being recorded in January 2021, but you want to be able to have that confidence to be you in every setting and not feel insecure, not feel like you're self-conscious. And I think that's the bit that is the important part, not whether it's 10 or 11 kgs that you've lost. We just use that to quantify your progress and to make sure you're making progress. But I also loved, that the innings analogy of 100 runs as opposed to 99. A lot of people have a perfectionist mindset where they want to achieve certain things and then they view anything else as a failure. You hit the nail on the head. It's just about making the progress. You'll hit that 100 innings eventually, whether it's 99 in one go and then one in another go, you're going to hit it. It doesn't matter whether it's in one go. So the fact
that's worked quite well for my, because I mean, 100 kilos, maybe not. It would be quite tough, aren't they? Could get there.
You would be an absolute stick at 6'4" if you were only 40 kg left. Let's not aim for that, Alistair. That might be a bit unhealthy.
Yeah.
Now that we're obviously we finished the first round where we worked, and you decided to carry on with me, and that's just because of the journey you have. You know that you've still got a ways to go. But if we weren't to continue, like we are continuing, did you feel at the end of that 16-week period that what we'd worked on was sustainable, was something that you could actually continue as long as you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely, there's lots more structures in place that you can go back to and think, this is what I used to do. You can get back to it. I just felt, for me personally, I just kind of needed, I think, that other kind of 3 months will kind of really, really set me up. And I guess there is always the kind of fear, everyone's been there before, where you kind of, there's no point, you yo-yo, so you get down, you go back up. But I feel more confident than I have in the past that it's sustainable. And if you fall off the wagon a bit, which I did at the weekend, you can get back on it pretty quickly. So yeah, I feel I wouldn't have felt terrible coming off after 16 weeks, but I just felt, the kind of position we're in, we're still kind of locked down. You've got this time to kind of really focus on it. So it seemed, from a personal perspective, to do it. And I think, anyone else that's watching this and gets in touch, it is a kind of, depending on how successful your business is, I suppose, and how much money you've got. But we'll probably cut that bit, Daniel.
I'll leave it in.
It's a big investment, but I think you just need to contextualise it, like what you're investing in and like what else you would spend it on. I worked out the other day that I'm quite into horse racing. I bought a share in a racehorse, and that was actually more than my first 16-week plan. Which, if you're weighing those things up and like what I've got out of both of them, it's kind of like I'll also get more out the stuff I do personally. My horse did win on Monday, so happy about that. But that's not a sensible investment compared to like the investment in you. So I think anyone that's thinking about it, don't like balk at that part of it. Just kind of think what it could mean for you long term and where you are, and just what else you spend money on. I think if you compare it to other things you spend money on, it kind of makes it a different proposition.
When it's a great point you bring up. The investment to work with me is considerable, but it's about what you get from that investment. People will spend the same amount on a holiday, and that gives them 2 weeks enjoyment. I love my holidays. I love traveling, so I'm not saying that's not worth it, but it's about value, right? But then the investment you made is having impacts in, I'd argue, every single area of your life. It's improved your health. It's improved your mindset. It's improved your outlook. It's improved your relationships. It's improved how you view everything. So I think when you think of health as a diet and exercise, the investment seems a lot. But then when you view it as diet, exercise, sleep, stress, mindset, basically a lifestyle change, it's quite a bit of a different approach, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think if you thought of it as kind of like someone came and said to you, it's going to cost you X amount per kilo to lose, you would chuck it. Like if it was nothing guaranteed, if it was guaranteed, you would throw so much money at it. So kind of you just got to accept that's not how life works. So you just got to like put some hard work in and like do some work on yourself, and then you'll get there. I think anyone that embraces it and does it and really kind of buys into it will get really good results. If you kind of approach it half-hearted, think I'm not doing that, then you won't get as good results, and you'll end up back in a couple of years with someone else or trying something else. But it took me a long time to realise that. So it's not saying that that's not what I would have done 5-6 years ago. So
no, for true. On that note, then, do you now see how important viewing your health as both mental and physical is crucial for proper results and also sustainable results? Do you see that connection now?
Yeah, definitely. It feeds into everything, like especially at work, because when you like put on that much weight, you can't like wear the suits you normally have. You just like, you kind of like saps your confidence, and you're just like not, you're kind of constantly on your mind. So like, it has quite a big impact on that type of stuff as well. So
Yeah, of course.
Not that kind of like losing weight, wearing a nice suit's going to like mean professional success, but it's just those little things that feed into it. As you're kind of confidence is a key thing, and
I think
that overweight, there's very few people are going to have it.
Yeah, I think it doesn't directly impact career progression or business progression, but
it's just like one of a set of things. It's just definitely a big factor.
Big factor. Yeah, I was going to say indirectly impacts it. You know, if you're going for a promotion and you're lacking in confidence, that's going to affect that promotion opportunity. If you're going for a business pitch and you're lacking in confidence, like not you, I have another client that he would go to board meetings and he would go to client pitches as the CEO of his company, and he would have to reconnoiter the boardroom for what chair he thought was the strongest. Now, like, that's an extreme, but when you're distracted by, do I look overweight? Am I still sweating from walking up the stairs? You know, all these different things, they detract from your ability to be present with what you're trying to do, which is now the promotion, now the pitch, now the board meeting, whatever it might be. So I think when you feel on top of your A game, both physically and mentally, you're able to show up better in every avenue of your life, including your professional side. 100%. So I think from my perspective, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you, and to continue to work with you as well. Like, I'm really excited to do another one of these in another few months, and hopefully we see you being even closer to the 100 mark, because we're really not that far off now. And with the rate you've been going, 1 kilo a week is your average. I think it's very doable. Hopefully we'll be doing this again in a few months' time, and people won't even recognise you. They'll just think it's two Alistair Woods. Thanks a lot for jumping on the call, Alistair. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and your experience working with me. Thanks a lot, mate.
No worries. Thanks, Daniel.